right, we're live on YouTube.
Can you do them both?
Can you not speak, sweetie? It's just like we're just on live on the air, dear. So, but yes, of course. Just going to make sure that everything's good. All right, here we go. We're going to get rolling here. We'll be a little earlier. Well, welcome to our broadcast this morning. This is a little different to be broadcasting during the day. It's a nice thing. So I'm glad you're here. We're simulcasting on YouTube. We're live on YouTube right now, and there's nobody on there right now, but maybe some people will come on. Then again, maybe there's Independence Day activities. It's pretty normal for people to attend parades, things like that this morning. And then people will end up at barbecues and then end up doing some type of fireworks. Or what I was seeing online today is some laser show in the sky. I guess that's where things might be going. Interestingly enough, some of that's pretty amazing, but nothing better than a flash of lightning. And the idea of that is, this is independence or freedom is taken by force. It's not a governmental suggestion and what have you. So, one of the things that that's happening today is after this broadcast, I'll be going into my town, in which I have a presentation. We're going to show the film, the musical 1776. If you haven't seen 1776, the musical, I highly recommend it. It's very good. My kids grew up on that, and if you're okay with it being a musical, I think I cry every time. With the struggle, I just thinking about the struggle that they were in to create this experiment is quite astonishing. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to also talk about where we are today and what's that all about. So anyway, so happy Independence Day. And by the way, the name of this holiday is Independence Day. It's not the 4th of July. And that's the date. That's not the name of this holiday. After we talk about deal with this American Union, then we'll digress into some state citizenship questions and answers and all that stuff. So I won't forget your questions. So anyway, welcome to Independence Day. There's a lot going on, and I'd be remiss not to deal with what is Independence Day. And if you haven't read the Declaration of Independence in a while, I highly recommend it. The way I feel about the Declaration of Independence is that it's somewhat sacred. Now, I don't believe that it's divine. Certainly, the interest in certainly when you see historically the Christians who recognize the Scripture and realize that kings were not the idea and were not originally were not a divine idea. Even though, if you look in the Scriptures, you should, as a historical understanding about kings, you should understand the first king in Israel, which was Saul, and the kind of lack of character that he had, and the warnings that God had. The people wanted a king, and that's the way it is even today. People want kings. People think of our president as if he's a king, like as if he has unlimited power. That's pure ignorance. And so the idea of that is is to understand that a president is the lowest of us all. When all of us are electing someone, then they're the lowest of all. And how do we know that? Because Jesus Christ in the scripture talk about the greatest leader is the greatest servant, or the servant of all. We don't follow representatives. Do you understand? These are not leaders, they're representatives. It's pure ignorance. And listen, we are where we are because of the people's lack of intelligence or lack of understanding. The people have looked to government as a provision, and that's why we're where we're at. So, but anyway, but I want to talk a little bit about the Declaration of Independence. And the amazing thing about that document is, what's great about it is not, I think of it in three parts: the opening, and then the grievances or the complaint that they had, and then the closing. And the opening or closing are key to understanding what it is we have and what it is we've lost, and then and what it takes in order to make a difference. And I want to talk about that practically in the union and all that. But I just want to go over this here so that you can get the gist of it. And we go over this in great detail in the class, the state versus federal citizenship class, because this is the creation of these states, okay, when you look at it. And it says the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. And the interesting thing on the document, the word united is a small u. It's not the name of the states, is the United States. The name of the federal government is the United States, capital U, capital S. But these were the states of America. And it goes to say, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. This is the opening. And if you notice in that first, it's really just, it's one sentence it's about the size of a paragraph, but it's talking about, they're not even talking about themselves. They're saying when in the course of human events. This is a human idea of what they're dealing with here. And when it talks about and to assume among the powers of the earth, again, they're talking about the whole world, the earth, all the powers of the earth. And this is amazing. And so this document, if you will, is a Declaration of Independence. And look what it's going to talk about. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Now, the amazing thing about that first paragraph is that this is talking about the right to disassociate. No one has a right to associate. And don't mistaken the right to peacefully assemble as the same as the right to associate. Okay? The idea is that no one has a right to be with you. We get restraining orders on people like that. The idea is that every time that someone thinks they want to be with you, it's a privilege. When you're going to be with someone, it's a privilege. And so the idea that one people can compel another people to be with them is tyranny. Do you understand? You can't join this union without a vote. Not only the vote of the people that want to join the union, but the people that are already in the union, their representatives have to agree that a people would join them, because it's a right to disassociate with people. What about blacks and whites? Yes. If people don't want to be with the people, it is their right. You can say, are you saying that if white people don't want to be with black people, it's a right? Yes, it's a right. You can have a college, a black college, and that seems to be okay, but you can't have a white college. And I'm not suggesting that that there's a morality. But listen, if the girls want to have a girls' school, it's their right. If boys want to have a boys' school, it's their right, or a club. No one can force themselves on other people. It's immoral. Any particular group, so you want to have a Jewish organization, that's your right. You want to have an Irish organization, you can come together with any sort of people. Now, your coming together may be completely immoral for whatever reason. If a bunch of Nazis, listen, we recognize that in America. If Nazis want to parade down the road, that's their right. It may be immoral. What you can't do with your exclusivity is harm other people. And where do you learn this? You're not going to learn this in school. That's a reality. Why? Because we don't teach anything in school other than communism, and that it's okay on some level. And go on. I'm go back to the Declaration. It says here that to secure these rights, I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. We hold these truths to be self-evident. And let me tell you another thing about truth. It's self-evident, okay? Everybody can sense what truth is, okay? In a broader sense. Now, I'm not saying that everybody can understand what the facts are. Truth is eternal. Truth needs no defense. Truth just needs to be declared. And it's self-evident. Guess what? You don't need your government to tell you what the truth is. Because I guarantee it's not going to be the truth. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Now, when this uses the word men, it's talking about mankind. We're talking about people. That they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. You can't separate these rights from the people. That among these rights, it's not the only ones, but among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now listen carefully. It says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. What's that saying there? The only just power in government is to secure rights. End of story, full stop. There's no other purpose of a just government but to secure rights. Governments are not to be in business. Governments are not to be in charity. Governments are not to be doing pretty much what our government and governments around the world do. Meddle in the affairs of people's lives. It's not the purpose of government. Now, am I the anarchist that doesn't believe in government? I absolutely believe that there should be government. And the only purpose of government is to secure rights and no other. And who wouldn't consent to that rights are secured? Now, what happens if the people don't know what a right is? How many people think that health care is a right? No, you have the right to pursue your health. That's a right. But to have it provided is a privilege. Someone else has to give. How about education? Is that a right? It is not. You have a right to educate yourself. You have a right to pay for the best education you want, but it isn't a right. Why? Because someone else has to provide it. And rights require no one else. Why is it that we don't know what a right and a privilege is? Why? Because the people are ignorant and they've trusted their government to educate their children. Malcolm X says, why would you ever let your enemy educate your children? That's just foolish. Why? Because we've taxed the people so much that it requires man and woman, husband and wife, to be in the workforce in order to afford this travesty that the bankers and the politicians that have allowed the bankers to control every single financial area of our humanity. It's disgusting. It says here that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. That's profound. It says that whenever any form of government, not just the big government, the whatever, any form of government becomes destructive of the ends of securing rights, it is the right, and here's another right, to alter or abolish it. And how's the altering power going in America these days? How's that working? Like they say, if voting actually helped, it would be illegal, right? It says, prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, All experience has shown. Look at that. What an amazing statement. All experience, at least all the experience that was in the room, the history that they understood, all experience, I lost my place here. All experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. How's TSA doing? And then we just get accustomed to it. How is any kind of regulation that comes in or taxation that's very small comes in and then it grows and it grows into a massive tyranny? How's it going? And and they're recognizing that it's human nature to allow certain tyrannies. So if your tyranny level and what you allow is up here, maybe we should bring it down to where it's unnatural to have governments handle every single aspect of our lives. It says here, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, a usurpation is an overthrowing of power. When a long train of abuses and usurpation pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, here it is another one, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. You see, it's your right and it's your duty to throw off tyranny. You're going to have to need to identify it. Oh, I hate government, but I want my Social Security. I paid into that. I deserve it. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their form of system of government. And what is that? They had a parliament, they had a king. It says the history, look at this statement, the history of the present king of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. Wow, what a statement. That's the opening. And then they go into all their grievances. And I thought it'd be a fun night. We're not going to do that now, but some night to go over each one of these grievances and see how we're doing today. I would take the king's grievances back then compared to the grievances and the tyranny we experience today. We are being harmed hand over fist, by this out of control government. So, and then to conclude this declaration, it says, in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble of terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character, listen to this is powerful to understand. We're talking about the king. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. I like this particular paragraph here. And the reason I like it is because it talks about that this tyrant, this prince, this king is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. And so a lot of people in my circles of anarchy and all that, they don't like the idea that there couldn't be a ruler of a free people. And the reason they feel that way is because they don't understand the English of this word ruler. Okay, what is a ruler? Now, see, if you get the context of this, a prince whose character, they're talking about his character, the kind of person he was. He's unfit to be a ruler. What's a ruler? Well, what is a ruler? Okay, if you're thinking ruler is one who rules, that's not this word. The word ruler is the word standard, like a unit of measurement, a ruler. That's what this is, a ruler, a standard. And you see, if we were voting somebody to be in office, we should be voting in people of impeccable character. The founders were saying that this king was unfit, his character was unfit to be the standard of a free people. And so that's why someone in office, it isn't a problem. Even if they were a king, it's not a problem because of the office of a king. If you had a righteous or a just person that was the king, then of course you would have justice in your government, because that king would be all about making sure that no one's rights are being violated. It's just an office. And remember, the king serves all. But what the founders found was that it's too much power for one individual, and that the results was to be to divide that power that the king had into different branches of government that would have checks and balances. How's checks and balances working today? Not so much. Because then you would have a legislative, an executive, and a judicial branch. And that this king, or the idea of an individual having power, would only be an executive that would oversee one branch or portion of the government. Okay. So the idea is the only thing that we should be doing is electing fit or people who are of moral character, that understand the limitations of government, and that they're only empowered to secure rights. The fact that you have to know what a politician is voting on is an indication that the politician is unfit to be the representative of a free people. They're unfit to be a ruler or a standard of a free people. Because if I was your representative, if you vote for me, all your wildest dreams will come true. No, the idea is that if you just elect someone who's of a moral character, like Dr. Ron Paul, he was called Dr. No because he would shut down anything that expanded government or that would tax the people. And that the only thing government was going to do was secure rights, that people wouldn't harm each other, or that the government wouldn't harm the people. That's the only thing they should be doing in there. And so if those were your representatives, then you could spend your time pursuing your happiness. And that would be a beautiful thing. That would be a government worth preserving, is if it had moral people. And the founders said that this form of government only works for a religious or moral people, because they have a standard within and without themselves that they're accountable to for their behavior. But that's not the way it is today, because it's just bad. We're going to get into that, of how it is today in just a second here. So it says, nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. And that's what we see, in our community when we deal with federal jurisdiction. And we see the IRS dealing with people. And look, what we talk about this, that, how to eliminate your income tax liability. We deal with jurisdiction. The reason the federal government is where they are and in every state and dealing with what there is that they are extending their jurisdiction. And they do it where people don't realize that that's how they're empowering their central government, is because they're offering them money, or their people are claiming to be federal citizens, and therefore that's how they're extending that jurisdiction. And you can change that. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. They said, we've reminded them why we left Europe and came to America. We wanted religious freedom. We wanted freedom of the press. We wanted someone to be able to own property. We wanted to have an economy that was controlled by the people and not their government. That's why they settled here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. We have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connection and correspondence. See, even their people over there were ignoring their pleas for justice and what have you. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the supreme judge of the world, they're talking about appealing to God, for the rectitude of our intentions due, and in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies. Look at their attitude. They're referring to themselves as representatives, not leaders. And they're appealing to the Almighty. who they're accountable to. And dealing with their intentions, they do, and by the power and in the name of the good people of these colonies. That's why they were there. It says, solemnly publish and declare, and listen, here's what they're declaring, that these colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. Don't you love that? Well, what about the debt? What about the debt they're in? What kind of connections? What can the colonies do? I remember being at the Pork Fest listening to the separatist leaders up on the main stage talk about separating from the Union. And they had the audacity to be saying that they, like Texas and California, would assume their responsibility in the debt. How could these people never read this document, much less if they believed it? The colonies didn't do that. Totally dissolved. Did the people of the states choose to take on the debt that these morons in DC take on all the time? No. You tell them to take their debt and the central bankers go stick it. That's what they should have said. But they'd have to understand the Declaration of Independence. And it's amazing in the film 1776, that musical there, it's like, they were asking why you're going to need to do a Declaration of Independence. And then they were saying, Jefferson steps up, which I love this line where he says, to present before all mankind in terms so clear, these are my words, clear and distinct, that it commands their assent. He's saying to write this so well that people will say, I'm on board. That's well written. And then they say, come now, Mr. Adams, are you suggesting that an illegal rebellion is in fact a legal one? And then Franklin steps up and says, come, Mr. Dickinson, of course, rebellion such in the first person is always legal, such as our rebellion. It's only in the third person, their rebellion, that it's illegal. That's the idea, yes, that there's a separation, And it says that these colonies are now free and independent states. Listen what it says. It says, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may have right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Where are those kind of people? I hope that you are that kind of a person that has a sacred honor. Will you do the right thing in your life? Will you be true to your word? Will your relationships with others be honorable? Will you do your duty to secure liberty and freedom in your local community, in your county, in your state? Do you know what your duty is? Who talks like that today about what your duty is? Jury duty is a duty. Why is that? Because it's your job to make sure your government isn't violating anyone. And when you get yourself on a jury, if peradventure you qualify, you have a responsibility to check that, not only to govern, to look at the case, but also to make sure that the government isn't overreaching in this particular case. And how many cases that the people are dealing with, the other party is the government, in which there's no harm person in this matter. That's when a jury has got to favor people over government. But it takes courage, it takes wisdom, it takes an understanding that you have a duty to secure the rights of your neighbor, not just yourself. You see, it's one thing, it's a certain good thing that you recognize that you have rights and you don't want them violated. But it takes a greater maturity and a greater love to make sure that your neighbor's rights are not violated. It's an amazing thing that we have as an opportunity in America. This has been an experiment. And the experiment worked for a certain amount of time. And I would venture to say that on some level, there was a certain time in which America was a light on the hill, and that people looked to come to America for a better life. You know, and but I'm afraid people are coming to America for the wrong reason today. They're coming to America for the free stuff. And before 1910, we had open borders, but people came here to work. Our central government has violated that by extending welfare to not only to Americans, which is bad. Welfare, government should not be in the charity business. That's for the civic organization or the church. Should not be extending welfare to people. You should read Davy Crockett's Not Yours to Give. It's an amazing writing. You should read that, look that up. And so the idea is that we are undone. 1910, we had open borders because people came here to work. If poorer countries would come to America and our government wasn't forcing these small companies to take care of these people by defining a minimum wage, by requiring workmen's compensation, by insurance, that which is a central bank type of a thing, which is putting all these burdens on small businesses, you know, where people will form corporations and their governments will tax and regulate them. How are they to survive? They can't even hire people. It's too expensive. If you eliminate all that government, then people will just hire people because they're willing to work. That would be a beautiful thing. And remember, you know, our southern border should be a beautiful relationship between Mexico and America. How is it that we have this, you know, Mexico manufactures for America, and that's beautiful, and yet we have a wall? Why? Because we have government, you know, regulating drugs, which we haven't delegated their authority to do that. We have a drug war that's not working. How's that drug war working? How is war working at all? It's not working. We war because what we want something that doesn't belong to us. It is an absolute mess. So the only problem of our southern border is the fact that the federal government is allegedly managing it. That's what's wrong with it. And let me tell you, walls built by government are not good walls. All walls built by government are designed to keep their people in. That's what that wall will do. Okay. The only wall that we should have is around Washington, D.C., and we should actually build a lid too and maybe put a lock on it. That would be a good wall. Yeah. But that's not happening either, you know. So walls built by government's not good. When people are free to make a wall around their own property, that would maybe make good neighbors, okay? But when governments build walls, it's always bad. It's always bad. Your government's going to tell you who your enemy is, really. You don't even know who your enemy is. You don't know who those people are. A warring people are not a free people. It's terrible. So when I think about this experiment, I think, you know, what, in theory, what was intended was beautiful. That a people, you know, that a government would be of its people, by its people, for its people. That's not what we have. How many people here think that the central government, our union government, represents us? I don't think there's anybody. Name me one thing that the federal government does well. Not a thing. Okay. Listen, do we need the central government to manage the parks in the states? No. State governments are very capable of running and doing their own parks. Thank you very much. And I remember there was a time they were shutting down the government. And the government always shuts down the thing that the peoples are enjoying. That's first. And then there's always the money comes back to everybody. Anybody who ever worked for government, they always get that money back. It's a crock of crap. So they can just extend the debt ceiling so that they can continue to borrow and whore after the money that the central bankers are offering the people. It's a stinking mess. The founders, no one reads the founders. I'm not saying you don't read the founders, but they don't teach the founding fathers in school. Matter of fact, they teach them that they were old white slaves. These were 20-year-olds that were in office, 20, 30-year-olds. They weren't old people in office. What a lie. And listen, there were men who had frailties in that and had sin. Okay, it's true. There was a time when slavery was legal. It's true. It never was moral. It never was right. But it was definitely a tradition. It's amazing. But we just poo-poo the whole idea. We throw it all out because we examine their lives and say, what good could come from Thomas Jefferson? My gosh, he had slaves. Read the Declaration of Independence and understand it. And the amazing thing about that film, 1776, because they dealt with, there was a slavery clause in the Declaration, and they were to abolish slavery at our birth in America. And yet they kicked that can down the road. How was that? You should watch the film so you can see the struggle. They were coming around to where they were going to need to vote unanimously. They had never voted unanimously for anything. Unanimously to stand together against Great Britain and overcome that. We may still be part of the English colony if it weren't for being unanimous and together. But the sad part, the immorality about not dealing with the slavery issue, made it impossible. And so we were born out of this kind of rebellion, this sin, and it has not, the consequence of that has not left us to this day. We're still dealing with racial issues in America. That is the consequence of those decisions, sad to say. But in America, let me just say this too, and this is not an unknown thing, but the idea is America is not a racist country or a union. It's not. Just take a look at it. Economically, anybody can do anything. We've already had allegedly a black president and all, and I mean, it's like, this is crazy. Are there racists in America? Of course, there will always be racist people, and many times we tolerate that crap. But the idea is that if you can't make it in America, you're in trouble. Okay, because there's some of the most wealthiest people are black in America. I mean, good Lord, it's just ridiculous. But regardless, that's what we're still dealing with. That sentiment. Why? Because the establishment wants us to have racial wars. The establishment wants to divide the people all the time. And that's where we are. And we can't allow that narrative to dominate our conversation when we're talking about a just government that's secured by the securing of the rights of the people. That's what that's what's necessary. Now, it's amazing. See, now, our roots, our foundation is a good and a sure foundation. Never in the history of the world has what we have in America ever come about by its people the way it has. It is an absolute political miracle that it ever came to be. And the American people have squandered their responsibilities and their freedoms here in America by electing the scum of the earth into office. And listen, I hate to think this, but I do like to think about that the people in Washington are the best of us. That's stinky. And I believe it because, listen, what kind of people elect that kind of people but stinky people? And so the best thing you can do is deal with liberty and freedom in your own life and the responsibilities of your own life. That's your part. That's our part, is to have a morality in which you don't harm anyone. And look, it's a struggle of endeavoring to be divine in your life, to have a moral standard that you're striving to pursue. And that's the beauty of marriage, if you will. It's a crucible, a character defining crucible in a committed relationship where the other holds you to higher standards for yourself than you would for yourself. That's a beautiful thing. That's a natural thing. So it's that's where we are. And so those ideals are great, But here's the reality, okay? In the land of free, home of the brave, okay, we're neither. And then people will say, if you don't like it, just get out of it. Listen, people think America's a country. It's ignorant to think of America as a country, okay? If you think America's a country, you might think Europe's a country. Anybody think Europe's a country? Look, Europe, They are free and independent states, if you will, just like in America. Free and independent states. That's what the Declaration of Independence stated. And then you have to read the Articles of Confederation. This is a perpetual union. It's a confederation. That's the form of government. We're a representative, a constitutional republic. What's a republic? A representative form of government. Okay, that's what we are. We are not a democracy, contrary to Tucker Carlson, who believes we're a democracy. That's just ignorant. Okay. The idea is, they make reference to a democratic form of, because people vote. They're voting for representatives, okay? A democracy is mob rule. When you have a standard, a constitution that declares that government will not violate your rights, it doesn't matter if the majority want something from you. You have rights that are secured by force if necessary, and it doesn't matter what all the people want. If all the people want to go to hell in a handbasket, you don't have to go along with it because you have rights that should be protected by government. That's not the case, right? What are we practicing? Well, read the Communist Manifesto, my friends. Read the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. If you've never read the Communist Manifesto, you probably don't know that our Congress has adopted every plank of the Communist Manifesto. And they want to implement that and have that to be the norm. We are a communist country, and we have an oligarchy. What's an oligarchy? A ruler of a few. And if you haven't seen the film The Jones Plantation produced by Larkin Rose, then you don't realize that you're electing your own tyrant. These aren't leaders. Like George Carlin says, it's a big club, and you ain't in it. It's a travesty. And again, people ignorantly will say, if you don't like it, just go ahead and leave. I have nothing but disdain for those ignorant people, those souls. I don't like it. I love America. I don't like its central government. And we have some states in America that are pretty screwed up. And then we have some states that I find are more beautiful than others. And there's not a state that doesn't have work that has to be done to secure the rights of the people. But let's make America states again. That's what's great. Decentralizing government is always a good idea. America will make it if it had no union. Because look, there's always going to be relationships. New England's a unique relationship that has nothing to do with the South. Listen, if in New England they buy the most salt for their roads in the wintertime, the South doesn't need to do that. Holy macaroni. And listen, California's government has to get its head out of its ass. That's why there's an exodus coming out of California. What a beautiful thing that is. I hope they don't take that shit to Texas and starting in Austin and make that in California South. It will happen unless the people govern themselves better. Do you understand? Same thing in New Hampshire, our southern border. I suggest we build a wall on the New Hampshire southern border. Keep those Massachusetts people out. Because nothing wrong with people leaving Massachusetts and coming to beautiful New Hampshire as long as they don't bring their shit government with them. I want my perks. I want my privileges. I want this. I want. That's what it is. Mama, I want my baby. I want my government to take care of me. Wah. Sad, but that's the American people. Stop looking to your government in everything. Let me tell you, no state has to secede from the Union. You can secede this way. Just stop taking their stinking money. You'll see the government regulation will leave. Make the District of Columbia irrelevant. Stop taking their money. Then you're going to find out how much things cost. It's just like growing up when you leave home. If you're living at home, you're going to come home when mommy and daddy says to come home. Pick up after yourself. Clean up the kitchen. Otherwise, get the hell out. Oh, you don't like to do chores around the house? Well, go live on your own and pay for it. Wah, wah. Grow up. I hear Al Pacino when he's talking to Charles. Grow up. Get the freaking wax out. But that's because we're coddled. We're handled like we're children. There are people that are going to die. There are people dying in the world by our hands. We're murdering people. You understand? That's happening. They don't report it on the evening news. We're fighting people we don't have an issue with. Our central government has issues with people. They want stinking banking systems. That's why we war, is so the central bankers can control every country and every transaction. It's immoral. And this curse will be on your children and your children's children if you don't wake up. Election, my ass. You can't send somebody to the District of Columbia to make a difference. It's not going to happen. You are a fool if you think you're going to send somebody to that cesspool and they're going to accomplish what? It's not going to happen. It didn't happen, and it's not going to happen again. The states are enough. What a travesty. How Americans love sports. We just have political sports. Every 4 years, we have the super game, the super political game. Oh, they're cheating. They're changing the score on it. It's a crock of crap. What a fool. Do you really have confidence that listen, if you put your ballot in a freaking machine, you don't deserve freedom. Do you understand? Don't stick that ballot into a invisible counting by a freaking microchip that's in there. How dare you think you're going to have freedom at no cost to you? My son asks me all the time. Years ago, he asked me, when are we going to start shooting people, Dad? I was like, what kind of question is that? Just read the grievances that they were willing to, the form of taxation that they were willing to say to the king, we're done. We just want to be left alone. America wasn't waging war against England. They said these colonies are abolished. Their all allegiance and connection to the British Crown is dissolved. They just want to be left alone. That you have a right to leave. Exile is a good form of nonviolence, of not wanting to be with somebody. But freedom is secured by force. It's like we mean no, and we stand that way. And so that's where the question comes with, when are we going to start shooting people? How bad does it have to get? And this is like what I was saying before. If you are a big advocate of the Second Amendment, that a person has a right to defend themselves, and you wore a mask, I promise you, you will not shoot anybody. If you can't say no when you know that you don't want to do something, if you can't say no to a mask, say no to a government-issued drug or a government-issued solution that you're going to believe anything, well, what kind of responsibility is that? You're not going to shoot anybody. That's just folly. For you, the Second Amendment, it might be about hunting. It's terrible. Freedom is secured by force, if necessary. And the beautiful thing about it is love calls us to secure the liberty of our neighbors, if necessary. What a beautiful act that would be. But we're isolated from each other. We don't know each other. How many know your neighbors? I can't say I know all my neighbors. It's sad. That's the kind of world we live in. It's just bad. So what's the value? Are we going to secure this union? I don't see it. I don't see, listen, if corruption was gangrene, what are we going to do in DC? As long as they have an unlimited supply of money, we're not going to have anything that's good come out of there. That's not going to happen. It's certainly not going to happen by a president. That I know, because the president's not in charge. The Congress is in charge. And if the character of people that are in Congress are what's in there, it's not going to stop. It's not going to end. As long as we have lobbyists and unlimited money coming to the politicians, and if listen, if they all become millionaires coming into office, they're in there for themselves. They don't represent you. And our foreign policy is astonishing. Let Europe secure its own borders with its own money. Why do we have to police force the world? We will become a major tyrant. It's broken. It's wrong. It's terrible. Listen, we could eliminate the federal military in an instant, and is an easy plan to create an army from its people from every state. The sheriff in every county is an elected individual. Okay, that sheriff has the authority to deputize anyone. If in every county, from every town, you had a group of well-regulated people that would join up freely to be a part of their town's regiment, to join the county made up of all the town's regiment becomes a county, and every county has its regiment in every state. And then we created the state games in which we could compete with each other on the excellence of the training associated with defending America. We'd have a larger military than we do now, and we wouldn't be in other countries around the world trying to manage the central government, the replacing governments all over. I mean, we wouldn't be doing all that crap. We would just be defending ourselves by ourselves. And every state that has an ocean on it would have a navy. Every state would have an air force. Every state would have a volunteer army, Marines. Every coast would have a coast guard. And we wouldn't have to have a central government coordinating it. And yes, people can come together and coordinate all kinds of things. It happens naturally. It's a beautiful act. It's not difficult. It's simple. And it can be about peace and defending ourselves and not about warmongering. We wouldn't be taking our National Guard and putting them in Afghanistan, in the Middle East, that cesspool of nothing there. It's a bad thing. And so yes, I'm suggesting we don't need our union. Just refuse the money coming from the central government. So here's my invitation, okay? This is what I'm going to do. And you're a unique group of people here, so I'm going to suggest that just try this out. It'll be a fun exercise, okay? We got between now and the November the 5th, remember the 5th of November. That's the election coming up, selection. So I'm going to say, go and meet with your Secretary of State. Now in my state, my Secretary of State is, it used to be Bill Gardner. Now it's Dave Scanlon. Okay, used to be the deputy. Anyway, I'm going to meet with him. I'm going to ask him, just for the exercise, I'm going to say to him, listen, when I vote in November, and what's important to vote for? My state representative, I care about New Hampshire, okay? I know my state representative. I saw he has a sign out. Werner Horn. That's who my state, I met with him. I've had coffee with him. If you don't know your state rep, he's not representing you. You should at least know you're a freedom guy, right? I gave Werner his Constitution he carries with him all the time. It's a great thing. You can be an influence. But anyway, getting back to the union, I'm inviting you not to vote for anybody to go back to D.C. And don't buy into this. If you don't vote, there's some in the back. Oh, screw them. There's nothing that's going to good come out of D.C. Even the best of you will ruin a good person by sending them to D.C. It's not. It's just not going to work. That's my suggestion. So I'm going to ask my Secretary of State, how can I defile my ballot so that I can just vote for my state and all that, and I want to write on it or do something on the ballot that says not for sale or not, lost confidence, no, doesn't represent me. Because if a ballot's being counted in a machine, they may mark it that if it's blank, they're going to mark it as voting for whoever it is we don't want. Okay. Now, in my little town, they actually physically count each ballot. I've been there. I've sat at the table when we're counting. I've counted ballots. That's the only way to do it. That way you can see, you can mark everything, and everything shows up. And that's the only way to do any kind of election. Is a hand counted ballot is a visible ballot. It's not invisible. So the idea is that that's what I want to do. Is I want to defile my ballot. I want everyone to know I don't support the union. And listen, America's just a union, folks. It's nothing more than that. Its ideals are beautiful if they were being implemented, but I'm afraid not. So I'm asking you, I'm inviting you to make America states again by not giving any confidence in in what's going on in D.C. That's my suggestion, and hope that that maybe one person will do that, and rather than that you're going to take the lesser of two evils, I would invite you never to vote for evil, even if it's lesser. It's like if I put a little bit of dog poop in some brownies, but this one had a lot of dog poop, and this just had a little bit of dog poop. Which did you want to eat? Okay. The one with a little bit of dog poop. Is that it? No. It's like, I don't want any bad things in me. So I don't want to vote anybody into there to go. I remember a local rep was running for office, and he said, hey, would you support me for a run for Congress? And I said, I would not. I said, I'll vote for you and I'll stand and campaign with you. You want to run for governor? You want to do something in the state? I would invite you to be in power in the state to push the federal government out of the state. That I would support you in. But if you go to Washington, you're not only, if you're a good man, you'll be irrelevant. And if you're a moderate man, you may be corrupted. I don't want to be a part of that. I'm all done with the union. America can be beautiful by a decentralizing of governments. Then the market will play out. May the freer and better state invite businesses because they're not taxing the hell out of them, that the people are freer. That will diminish populations in bad states, and then they will change because they'll recognize there's a mass exodus. That's how you do in a market. You don't want a monopoly. So that's my suggestion with respect to America. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to share this morning with you, and I'm praying for America. I'm praying that she'll do the right thing, and that we'll have peace in America. We'll have peace in the world, and peace is worth working for, when we get along with others. So anyway, thanks so much. I appreciate you, and so now we're going to get into answering some questions about state and federal citizenship. And so I noticed there's a bunch of activity on the chats. Now there's some things on YouTube. Now on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Hopefully we continue to grow. Someone mentioned on YouTube, it says the voluntary union ended in 1865 after DC's union instituted forced union at gunpoint over the CSA. Many people share that sentiment. I agree too. You can't force people into a union and think you have a union. So I agree with you, and I think the amendments after that has just been a mess. I do feel that way. But here's the thing. What people will allow and what people will practice is the government that they're choosing. So even though that beautiful experiment ended when the South left the Union, I'm afraid this form of government, whatever it is what we're acting in. And that's what's being compelled, against people and such as that. Someone said, imagine if everyone read the Declaration of Independence and put it into practice. Yes, that's a great word. And that would be assassinations. So the 1960s, yeah, it's just a mess. So let's look at some of these things here. Someone says, will the 385 course answer all my questions regarding state and federal citizenship? I have Monero. Will someone be able to guide me on how to transfer it? Yes, I'd be glad to. Esther, what you do is you can email me at statecitizen@destinationfreedom.org. And That class is a 6-hour class. It'll let you know who has an income tax liability. You'll be able to, after that class, understand whether you want to go on this journey of eliminating your income tax liability. If you're not a federal citizen, you won't have a liability. And so, yes, that answers an awful lot of questions. I don't know about all the questions, but certainly the majority of your questions will be answered in that class. And yes, so if in the email to statecitizen@destinationfreedom.org, you say you want to do a Monero transaction, then include your contact information. I'll reach out to you, and we'll set up a way to do that transaction, so that you can get into that class. Be glad to do that. Let's see what else is the person says, currently I earn wages payable once a month in the state republic of I completed states the unknown as a prerequisite to the DF I'm not sure, DFY and the DY passport course. Okay, so yes. Yeah, some of that stuff you may be changing as you get into the other alignment classes that'll tell you, you're not going to take a tax stand while being employed and all that. You're saying you make wages, that's fine, but really, if you're doing business, if you're contracting with somebody, then they'll be offering you a W-9, and you need to have a W-9 that's exempt, which we have for clients, and then that way you have profits, not wages. Wages are if you're employed. And so hopefully that's not the case. You got to pull out of that, do your own thing. That's where you're going to have the most responsibility and the greatest amount of freedom. Someone says, never applied for, nor do I own a passport. Okay. This is a 3-pay. There's 3-pay available to more quickly ground running sooner. I would recommend, Mark, that we've talked before, but I would get on the phone so we can talk. This is not a good platform for me to help solve and deal with and direct you where you need to go. So you have my contact phone number. Just call or text me, and we'll see if we can set up an appointment, and then we can get you through all that. So that's cool. Currently, Secretary of State in New York is Robert Rodriguez, a Democrat since 3/22. Yeah, so go meet with the Democrat and share your sentiment. It's exciting. One of the reasons that I tell people to meet and know who their government is just so that you will change how you relate to government, so that you will believe and know that you are the power center. And just the idea of setting up an appointment with the Secretary of your state because you're important, they're going to say, what do you want to talk about? And you listen, if I didn't want to disclose, listen, if you tell your Secretary of State what you're going to talk about, then they may say, no, they don't want to talk with you. So I don't usually disclose what I want to talk about. I'll say it's private in nature. I don't want to disclose what I want to talk to the Secretary of State about. But I'm here's where I live. Here's where I am at. I want to talk with the Secretary of State. I'd like to set up an appointment. It'll only be 15, 20 minutes max. They'll meet with you, especially if they don't know why you want to meet with them, because they're always afraid. So yeah, go meet with them. And I want to know how that goes. Okay. So, but I've met with Dave Scanlon when he was Deputy Secretary of State, and I've talked to him about state and federal citizenship and all. He tends to favor state citizenship over federal citizenship. So I'll meet with him again because I'm looking forward to that. Matter of fact, can't take on too much more. Maybe after we have a live class in New Hampshire, after that I'll go and hook up with the Secretary of State. Someone online says, on YouTube says, in your talk with him, I heard you say people won't move down this pathway while being an employee or a corporation. Can you speak more into that? I'm working one. Yeah, you can't have freedom in your business when you're in bed with government. All corporations are born out of irresponsibility. They're inviting for privileges and immunities. So do your business without privileges and without protections. Be responsible for what you do. Don't harm people, okay? And you can get insurances if there's liabilities and things like that, of course. But corporations are controlled by the governments that create them. And so therefore, it's not a freedom thing for you to want to be in business with government, thinking that you're going to be separate from government. They're going to tax and regulate you. And as far as being an employee also, it's a privilege to work for a corporation, and they're not going to take your tax stand with you. So you have to be responsible for paying or not paying your own taxes. That's the only way you're going to do these processes. If you're employed and you're important enough, you'll contract with the company. If you're important enough, if you're not important enough, then you can start and launch your own business. We're glad to help you in that endeavor. So hopefully we can be a part of separating yourself from government. So that's what I was talking about. Um, that's cool. So can I chat and see on the GMT? Listen, Mark, I appreciate your. I don't know what these acronyms are. The GMT. I don't know what you use a lot of these things, and I'm not sure what I know. I guess DY is do it yourself. I guess that's a non thing, but some things I don't know what you're saying. Can never hear the audio, so I have to go to YouTube. And so yeah, go to meeting. That's what GTM is. But can never hear the audio. So I don't know what that issue is for you. I'm not a computer guy. We have a lot of people that do these same platforms. And listen, I have my own problems with GoToMeeting. Hopefully, when we have the overhaul with Destination Freedom, maybe I'll have a platform within my own website that will do our own thing. That'll be good. We'll see how that goes. I don't really want to go with Zoom because Zoom owns all my what is being recorded or what. What I may be broadcast. They say that they may record it or whatever, so I don't want them to take my stuff. So that's why I don't like Zoom. I wish you on Mike Adams' podcasters, Steve Quayle, talk about desk. Yeah, listen, Esther, I would love to be on those podcasts. Speaking of that, if there's a podcast that you know of that you'd like me to talk with, if there's a group that you'd like me to talk to, I would love to talk about the ease in which it is to stop being a federal citizen, not have a tax liability. That'd be great. Someone says, if you're living on crypto and basically avoiding banks, how do you make large value transactions where people require bank payment without getting roped into the federal zone? Yeah, I mean, listen, you're using banks. I'm not roped into the federal zone. Listen, the dollar's roped into the federal zone, but I'm not a federal citizen nor a resident alien. I've never read in the tax code that if you're using Federal Reserve notes, that's what creates the tax liability. I don't know. Matter of fact, if you're wanting to pay the alleged tax debt, I've seen people say, what form of money would you like me to pay with? A debt instrument, which is what a Federal Reserve note is. You're paying debt with a debt. It's kind of an interesting concept, but the courts usually won't speak into that. But yeah, we can do large transactions. I take crypto and other people would take crypto. And so we want more people to take crypto and not use banks. I've had recently a client who was having a hard time moving from their credit card through PayPal. And, it's just a mess. And the banks are still wanting to hold your asset for a certain amount of time so they can use it, even if it's overnight or even if it's, 5 days. They're doing checks still, e-checks. What a crock of crap that is. Listen, I don't even understand pending in my bank. If a transaction shows up on my bank, why wouldn't it resolve right away? Why? Because they want to use my money. Money goes out of your account fast. It comes in slow as molasses. It's just central banking. It's crap. So I always tell people, if you have a central bank account, not a corporate account, not a tax ID number, but a bank account that has a social tied to it, keep it. It's a useful tool. And then because you're not going to have to reestablish and make with your full knowledge make agreements for bank accounts. I don't recommend that. Although economically we're doing what we have to do. You can still give them your proper W-8 and W-9 so you have no tax liability. That's not a problem. I have the same bank account I had for over the last 30 years. I'm not having trouble with IRS or with, liens or levies. Let's see. Done for you, done for yourself. Done. Who would know that, Mark? That's what it means. Thank you for that. What exactly is debt dischargement service you offer? Well, we have a class in which you can discharge your debt for fraud. It's based in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, in which we ask the bank basically where you got the funds from that you're allegedly they lent. They never lent you anything. They just created credit. You're paying back a credit extension. The bank doesn't give you an asset that they're lending. That's a fact and reality. And so based in that understanding, we have paperwork that asks the bank to validate a debt and then after 30 days, if they don't validate it, then you put the bank in default, and you're all done with the debt. And so we have a class that deals with that. That class costs $17.76. Okay, and that's online, but we only offer that class to clients. So you have to do the passport process in order to discharge debt. So that's what that is. It's not A for V. It's not based in some sort of trust that was created with a birth certificate. All that stuff is just pure nonsense. No facts or evidence to support that claim. That being said, doesn't mean that the states don't monetize everything that frickin' moves, but you're not in that deal. So will this work for credit cards? Of course, unsecured debt it works for. Okay, if it's got a title, then you don't own the thing. If you are going to challenge the title, then you're going to need to have the title holder prove that they have title to something. Okay, so whoever's issuing title is the one that actually owns allegedly the thing. If the bank is holding title to your car, then it's their car. After you pay it off, then they give you title. That's how that's going to work. In a mortgage situation, you're going to need to examine the paperwork to see if they actually do have title, if they actually have the wedding signatures. And a lot of banking, 77% of banks out, mortgages out there have some sort of deficiency. That would be the basis of discharging or dealing with a mortgage. And again, you could also do mortgage from an extension of credit as well. But the difference is the negotiable instrument, allegedly, or the signature that creates the credit. So that's the nature of that. Let me see. It says found about me. Yeah, I appreciate Jeff has referenced Destination Freedom in our work a number of times. I'm hoping to speak at the main stage in Acapulco this coming February. So hopefully we'll work out the details for that, and I can be there and get to meet you if you want to be in Acapulco. It's my intention to plan a class in Montana this fall, and I already talked to, we have a client that's in Hawaii, and we're looking to do a state citizenship class, a live class, and passport process in Hawaii and also in Montana. We have a live class coming up this Saturday in New Hampshire. If you want to be a part of that, you can come up. We can do your passport documents together, and we can even go to the post office in New Hampshire. They've seen this work a lot of times. So if you want that kind of hand holding, I'll be glad to hold your hand and help you in that. You can drive up to New Hampshire for this Saturday. 9 o'clock in the morning is that. Today is the July 4th. So if Saturday the 6th passes, then you'll know that this is not a current class coming up. So anyway, I think that's what we're all for today. I have a presentation I have to do at the library at 1 o'clock today, and I'm going to show that film 1776. We'll see if some of the people in my local area are up for that. They have a display case in the library, and I filled that up with a large copy of the Declaration of Independence. I have a chessboard of Revolutionary War characters, warring. So we have all those things. We have a bunch of different sentiment in the display. It's a Revolutionary War display. And so that's been a lot of fun. So I'm just trying to do my part of helping people to understand what their liberty and freedom is. I thank you all for being on this morning. Enjoy your day. Think about liberty and freedom. Consider some of the things that I suggested. Maybe it'll be a part of that. I would love to hear your story and hear what you're about and the difference that you're making in your community, in your state, and certainly in our, in America. Okay. And thank you so much. God bless you all. You take care and have a good time. Let me just lose YouTube here. Let's see here. All right, there it goes.